Okay, resetters. Today I want to start off by talking about what we're going to do for fast training week next week, and then I'll open it up for questions. So if you're new to my channel and you don't know about fast training week, once a month we take a 5-day period and we all fast together. And I usually give you 2 options of fast to do. This time I'm actually going to give you 3 options, and we're going to involve the whole family. So questions about how you should you fast with children? What about children that are a little bit older? How would you fast? And so I decided to really bring in a more of a complete conversation is probably the best way, a more complete conversation about how you can apply the principles that I teach here to your family. So let's start off with the 3 principles. So the first one, you guys can do a water fast, 3 to 5 day water fast. If you haven't done a water fast, here are my rules with water fasting. You've got to use a blood sugar reader, and you want to make sure that you're taking a measurement of your blood sugar and your ketones morning, noon, and night. So that would be my first number rule. Second rule is if that blood sugar reader starts to get down into the 50s for American measurements and down closer to 2.9 in millimoles, the rest of the world's measurement, you break your fast. You do not want your blood sugar to get too low. And then third rule, with water fasting, is if you get really lethargic and you feel like you're going to pass out, try eating some fat. Look at your numbers, and it's possibly that you need a time for you to break that fast. So if you're going to water fast, this is a great time to do it because we have so much community support, and it's just fun to do it all together. We do have, there's a lot of interaction in the Resetter Collaborative on Facebook. Our Academy members are doing their own version of community support. So if you need community support, come either join us in the Academy or in the Collaborative. So that's the first option. And if you haven't tried a 3-day water fast, this is a good time to do it. Like, now is a great time. Okay, second option is 1 meal a day. So what I'm going to encourage you, if you're going to go 1 meal a day, I'm going to encourage you to get as close to 24 hours as possible, because remember, it's that 24-hour mark that you start to get intestinal stem cells that get rebooted. So now it does get a little tricky, because if you eat your meal at 6 o'clock, then you won't eat again till 6 o'clock the next night. And then let's say it takes you a half hour to eat. Now you're at 6:30. Okay, the next night you don't eat until about 6:30. So you know, I just say when it's 1 meal a day, try to eat at the same time every day, so you're going within a 24-hour period. What meal you choose for that meal, I'm going to give you guys the option of either Ketobiotic, which is 50 net carbs, 50 grams of protein, 60% good fat, and making sure that you're adding in fermented foods like sauerkraut and kimchi, and you're adding in your leafy greens. Or if you guys missed out on carnivore and you want to do carnivore with 1 meal a day, that's fine as well. So those are your options on the 1 meal a day. Now the third option is going to be the family option, and here's what we're doing over there. And everybody's obviously got kids of different ages. In the family option, what I'm going to encourage you all to do is, for a week, go without grains and go without sugar. So it would be, you're not going to count macros. I want to be very sensitive to the fact that we don't need to start creating some poor like eating disorder behavior within teenagers, specifically teenage girls specifically. So I don't want a lot of counting of the macros. What I want you doing is pulling out sugar. I want you pulling out grains. So you're basically eating meat if you eat it, and you're having vegetables. You can have potatoes. You could have wild rice. I'd encourage you to stay away from the more refined rices, but you're going to get off of your cookies, crackers, desserts, soda pops, like you're going to get off of all of that stuff. And then I want you to start leaning into more fat. So you're going no grains, and you're getting your carbohydrates from nature, and then I want you to look at what you can do to improve your fats. So more avocados, more raw nut butters, more Andre's seed oils, more MCT oils. So as the week goes on, I will be giving you more and more ideas. Now with fasting in that group, if your kids are under, let's say, 16 years old, I don't want you to encourage them to fast, but what I would encourage you to do is if they're not hungry in the morning, like they wake up and they're not hungry, stop pushing breakfast on them and wait until they're hungry. So my goal over this week is that you might find the natural rhythm of their eating style. I always use my son as an example. He is not a breakfast eater. And what we've discussed is that he starts to get hungry around 10 o'clock. So I make sure that he's got food at 10 o'clock. I don't push breakfast on him as he goes out the door in the morning. So and I'll talk again, I'm giving you guys the rules, and we'll talk more about this next week. You'll see a lot of posts on Instagram about it. I've got 2 videos here on YouTube coming out about my favorite tips for keeping kids healthy. And we're going to talk about which kids can fast and which can't, and how you introduce fasting to kids. If your kids are over the age of like 16 or 17, around that time period, and they are asking to fast, this would be a good time to teach them intermittent fasting. That's going 13 to 15 hours without food. They can safely do it. They should know how to do it. 17 years old is right about the time that they should be starting to learn about intermittent fasting. So if they have an interest and you have a teenager, then you can get them intermittent fasting with the keto diet that I talked about. So those are your 3 options. If you have questions, put them in the comments. What will happen is on YouTube here, you will see a community post from me every morning. If you have a question, put it in the comments on that community post, and either myself or my team, we will go in there and we will make sure that the question gets answered. So for those of you that aren't on Facebook, that's how we can communicate with you. On Instagram, I will be doing some lives in my story. I will be putting out some great information for just the family part of this on how to make it much easier for families. So we always try to give you guys tools to be able to succeed at that. And if you're in the Resetter Collaborative, you know, we got a lot of great fasting support over there. So if you're not in the collaborative, just put Resetter Collaborative in the comments and we'll send you a link. And again, if you want a smaller, tighter community, you want more interaction with me or my team during these fast training weeks, go into the Academy, and you can just put Resetter Academy in your comments.
If you're in the collaborative, look for the event.
Oh, and if you're in the Resetter Collaborative, I'm going to do a Facebook Live in there tomorrow, and we have an event in there as well. So that's kind of the logistics, just so you guys understand. Once a month we're doing this, and this month is on families. If you were on my webinar last night, let me know. We had over 800 people sign up. We had really good feedback, and you know that I talked about what the evidence that we're seeing right now that's making people a good host to this virus. And so I talked about the 5 things you need to do in order to be immune strong. And one of those things is we've got to reverse metabolic syndrome. So one of the exciting moments for me is that we're going to be able to roll out Fast Training Week to families, because here in America, we only have 12% of America is metabolically fit. And I am on a mission to change that. We have to change that. And if we want out of this pandemic, we have got to change metabolic syndrome. And the greatest, fastest, easiest, least expensive way we can do that is through fasting and through teaching families what foods they should be eating so that their kids are not growing up with metabolic syndrome. So there'll be a lot of discussion next week about that. And if you have kids and you have hurdles with their eating, put it in the comments so that I can make sure that I address it and that you guys get the information that you need. So I'm excited to roll that out. So with that, let us know where you're from, and if you have questions.
I have a few great questions.
Yeah,
so
great. Let's go for it.
Skip to one that I thought was really
Yep,
good.
Scott.
Because this will apply with different people in your family wanting different things from fasting.
Okay.
Right? Not everybody's going to have the same goal.
Yep.
Right? Maybe talk about that really quick.
Yeah. In the family, here's the thing about fasting. You never push any fasting on anybody. So if you've had great results and you want your hubby to fast, don't push it on him. Fasting has to be an internal place that you come to, that you are like, I'm going to do this. Now, like you, most people typically come to fasting. Maybe they're intrigued. They might hit a few bumps in the beginning, and then they see how great they feel. And now nobody can talk you out of not fasting. So everybody in the family may have a little different style, and we need to honor that it's okay. That's fine. Again, I tell you the story of my 17-year-old son who has a natural fasting style. And before I knew fasting, I was pushing breakfast on him. And then I realized, wait a second, it's okay as long as we're catching him at 10 o'clock. So we talk about that.
So this is from Nora.
Okay.
And Nora wants to know if it's possible to gain muscle and to become fitter if you're small and you're already thin. And you want to do intermittent fasting. So do you eat nutrient dense? Do you overshoot on calories?
How do you gain muscle and fast at the same time?
Right,
is what I hear.
Already fit.
Yeah. Okay. And she's already fit. So Nora, this is what I heard from you. Okay. I have so many thoughts. So the first thing I'll tell you is that think of fasting as a way to clean out the bacteria, the toxins, the extra fat that may not be serving you. So when you stimulate autophagy, it's a cleaning out moment. But if we want to build muscle, we also have to stimulate mTOR. And mTOR is stimulated through protein. So with my athletes, what I like to do is go into these keto days with a longer fast, like over 17 hours, so that we're cleaning things out, and then follow that up with some muscle building by going into what I call protein cycling. The best way to stimulate mTOR to build muscle is to eat protein 20 grams every 2 hours. And you're going to do that up to 150 grams a day. So you don't fast on those days. And I don't know how much muscle you're trying to build, but you would throw in like one or two, protein cycling days a week. So I think you should be in about 80% autophagy moments and 20% mTOR, depending on your time of life. But it's the cycling in and out. So you go into autophagy, you're breaking things down, and then boom, you come in and you build up with your protein cycling. And on your days where you are working out the most, that's a great time to do the protein cycling. So now you're stimulating mTOR. Maybe it's a day you're lifting weights. So everything in that day is about building up. But then the next day you go into, okay, let me clean out again. So hope that helps. But that's what we've seen work the best for our athletes.
Great. We have two different people that are posting about fasting with their younger kids.
Okay, awesome.
So Health and Wealth Fasting Lifestyle and Bull Bear Breeders.
Okay.
One's kids are 6 and 8, and the other ones are 7 and 5. And their kids don't really get hungry in the morning.
Yes,
and
okay.
So they're waiting till 11. So it's
I love this.
15 hours fasted.
Yes.
That's what they're doing naturally.
So you guys that just told me about your kids that are 6 and 8 and 7 and 5, here's something you can do with them. And this is why I wish I had known this when my kids were little. But talk to them like, well, when do you get hungry? Or, and this is what I did with my son, but I should have done it when he was 7, is like, just ask them like, so when are you noticing that your body wants food? So we usually have been taught to go according to the clock. It's like, oh, it's morning time, it's breakfast, let me eat. But what you can do at those ages is you can say, okay, well, when do you notice? When does your internal clock kick in? And then they say, oh, it kicks in 2 hours later. Awesome. Let's start eating then. And then later in the day, you can say, well, when does your clock tell you to stop eating? Like, my son likes to eat in the middle of the day. He's not a big eater at night. He's a big lunch eater. Well, that's his circadian rhythm. That's what works well. So next week, you can talk about getting them in touch with when are they hungry, when are they not. Now, if I go back and I think about my kids at 7 years old, by the time you figure out that they need food, you might have a tantrum on your hand, the behaviors might be different, but that you could talk about that too. Like, do you think that you're feeling emotional right now because maybe you needed to eat an hour ago? But why I bring this up is we are not teaching kids how to eat with their normal circadian rhythm, and we all have a different rhythm. So this is a great opportunity next week to teach them that. And then if they're willing at that age, you may get them to test their blood sugar. That might be kind of fun too, and have them just once have them prick their finger. They may be a little nervous about that, but it's not going to hurt them. And then you can take a reading and you can find out what exactly is the blood sugar after you eat a certain food, and what is it right before you eat, and you can start, or when you wake up in the morning. Those kind of conversations are how we start to build healthy behavior that's very individual. So, and let me know how that works. I think that could be really great.
Great. A few other comments about different parts of, I don't know what a biblical fast is. Do you know what that is?
No.
And Ocean River wants to know if they're on the right path with 18-6 and keto. You want to talk about variation a little bit?
Yeah, so Ocean River was asking keto, 18-6. That's a pretty common fast. A lot of people love that fast, and I think it's great. I would say that's about what I do most of the time, just because I've got a busy day, and it just is kind of naturally falls in that way. But just make sure you're varying it. So what happened with our 15-day metabolic reset is we created that because we had all these people that had been following Dr. Fung, and they came over to my YouTube channel and they started to understand autophagy a little different. They started to look at some of the variations of fast that I was teaching over there, and they made the comment that they were getting stuck with 18-6. And so then I rolled out our 15-day reset because I was like, I wanted to show people how variation of fasting worked, and people got unstuck. So if 18-6 is working for you right now, awesome. But if you hit a point where you're like, I'm not getting the same results I used to get, then you're going to need to vary it.
And you got to do Ketobiotic. You got to build in some.
Yeah, and you're going to hear us talk a lot about Ketobiotic, and Ketobiotic is really important because with low keto, where you're not eating any vegetables, you could be damaging your microbiome more. So we like vegetables for keeping our microbiome at its best. So that's why we call it Ketobiotic. And you could lean into sauerkraut. I mean, last night I had a meal of grass-fed beef over 2 cups of sauerkraut. That was my dinner last night. It was amazing. So that would be a perfect example of a ketobiotic meal.
Okay. Let's see. A lot of people talking about their fasting experience.
Yeah, if you've had a good experience, put it in the notes. We have had some really cool testimonials this week. We've had some people on Instagram telling us that their whole family got COVID with really bad symptoms, and they're in that household with the family, and they got tested positive, but they have no symptoms. So this is a perfect example of where keeping your blood sugar down really helps. And so this woman was sharing that she wasn't symptomatic yet, she was around it and she had it. So I just think, God, this is how we can help the world right now. And then we had another woman who told us that she had bounced around from doctor to doctor to help her RA, and she started fasting, and now her body's improving. So just cool stories. The thing about fasting is it really gives you an opportunity to realize how intelligent your body is, and we've just never been taught that. So once you remove food, you get to see the miracle that you're living in, which is really cool.
Great. Let's see, what are we at? We have a little bit more time. Debbie's doing a great job putting links in for all these people. So thank you, Debbie, for all your
Our team. Debbie is in there putting links. Thank you, Debbie, in the middle of a storm.
She said the storm passed.
Oh, the storm passed. Okay, awesome.
A Jane Doe, so unknown person, wants to know if fasting kills parasites.
Will fasting kill parasites? Okay, so in order to answer that question, let me sort of tell you my evolution in understanding the gut and where I've been using fasting. So for years, I was big in my own personal practice of giving supplements for candida, for parasites, for any mystery bacteria that showed up. And what ended up happening is we would have great success with the supplements, but then for some reason, and there's a couple of reasons I've since learned, all of a sudden the candida would come back or the parasite would come back. Once I started to understand the principles of fasting, the thing about fasting is you're tapping into the intelligence of your body and you're stimulating stem cells. So like a 24-hour fast, you can stimulate the intestinal stem cells. So I thought, well, what if I take these same people who have parasites and candida in my practice, what if I start teaching them how to fast? And that was a game changer. I found I could move in with a candida cleanse for 30 or 60 days, and then we never had to revisit that candida cleanse again. I could do put somebody on a parasite protocol very temporarily, and then we would not have to deal with it again as long as they had built themselves a fasting lifestyle. So what you do, especially with a 24-hour fast, is because you're rebooting the intestinal stem cells and you're creating this internal change inside the gut, all of a sudden it becomes a less favorable place for those parasites to live. So you have to remember that it's like all of these, we call them co-infections, parasites, candida, Lyme, Epstein-Barr, like they can live when there's a certain environment inside the gut. But when you change that environment through food or through fasting, all of a sudden your intelligence starts to deal with them better, and these bacteria and viruses start to realize that this is not a favorable place for them, and they die off naturally. How cool is that? So yes, the answer is yes, do more fasting for parasites. I just showed on my webinar last night that 50% of the COVID cases are not respiratory, they are gut related. And part of that is because we have these ACE2 receptor sites that are prolific in the gut and they're prolific in the lungs. And so we have such poor diversity of bacteria in the gut because we've been doing so many antibiotics and we've been spraying with things like glyphosate that everybody's gut is off. And what they're finding is that it's the diversity in there that will minimize how many of these receptor sites we have and can be the difference between how somebody is symptomatic with COVID and somebody isn't. Remember that right now, an article came out last week, so it was on the 5th, that in the Washington Post showing that 40% of people that are getting this virus right now are asymptomatic. Well, I guarantee if we did gut zoomers on all those people, they have great diversity in their gut. So yes, absolutely yes.
Okay, well, maybe you had something to say there.
I had a little bit to say on that topic.
I'm not sure how to say this. UTE,
okay.
Perhaps, finds it difficult to do meals because everybody in the family has another diet or eating rhythm. You want to talk about how to...
Yeah, what do you do? This is a
family.
good topic.
Yeah.
Next week I should...
Family.
Next week I should dive into this a little bit more. Okay, so Oot is asking, what if everybody in the family has a different eating style? Well, you're going to have to figure out how much cooking you're going to want to do. So I'm going to go with the assumption that everybody, maybe there's some food allergies in there. I interviewed Brian Sanders on my Resetter podcast. He's a filmmaker, and he is doing a movie called Food Lies. And he talked about this thing called the unifying principle of nutrition. And I would say, and how if you look at, his point was that if you look at all of the diets out there, that there is this unifying principle that many diets agree with, we just don't bring it to the surface. And so I would say the same thing. If I was in a household where we had a bunch of special diets, is there a unifying piece of that? Like his point was that the unifying principle is that any diet that does well, where people thrive, they're not high fat and they're not high processed carb. so the minute you take the high fat diet away, meaning the bad fats, and you take the bad carbs away, doesn't matter if you're vegan, if you're carnivore, like taking those two things away and people will be healthy. So what is it that's unifying all of the special diets, and can you take those principles and make more meals like that? Now, if everybody has a different eating style because of health reasons, then you're going to have to sort of adjust to that. If everybody has a different eating style because of taste reasons, personally, I would be like, this is what we're serving. If you want something different, you make it yourself. I don't know the ages of your children. So, but
people separate. Like I don't eat nuts. You love nuts.
Yeah, there's a good
We just on the side. Or I pick them out.
Yeah. So my hubby doesn't eat nuts. I love nuts. And so we just have to make sure, like when I go to make a salad, my son doesn't like tomatoes. So like I leave certain things out and then everybody can make their own salad. So you can have sort of put up a buffet of like, here are all the foods I've cooked and everybody customize kind of like a taco bar. It would just be your dinner bar. So you could try that too.
Good analogy. Okay, a lot of other testimonials. People are fasting right now.
Awesome. Thank you guys for fasting right now. We need the world to fast right now. This is the quickest way out of metabolic syndrome. So if you want to really make a big dent in not getting this virus and not being contagious to this virus or spreading the virus, it comes in really this idea around fasting. When we bring the blood sugar down, we start to be bad hosts to the virus.
Great. I think let's end with this concept. I see a few sort of questions about this.
Okay.
And you know the idea that hold on.
He's formulating his question.
I'm formulating. So there's a bunch of different people, and I got confused over which one I was going to go with. When you start a fasting lifestyle, how quickly can you start to see changes in your metabolism? When do you see effects? How long
that's
does
a good
take?
question.
So there's a few different questions in this genre.
Okay.
The one that was the most distinct was how long does it take to change your metabolism?
Okay, so let's look at it. Let's look at it this way. The question is, just so to fill you all in, how long does it take to change your metabolism with fasting? So think of it this way: if I have a river, and I am pouring toxins into the river. So I am putting chemicals into that river, and it's changing the fish that are in there. It's changing the algae that's in there. It's changing the whole environment in there. If I keep pouring all of that in there into the river is going to get sicker and sicker. Now, one day I decide to stop pouring the chemicals into the river. How quickly will that river rehab? And it's going to depend on a couple of things. It may take a lot longer for the fish to start to regenerate than the algae. It also might depend on what chemicals I had been pouring in. That might be a big piece to this. So the same things with fasting. Let's just assume you've been putting the wrong foods in your diet. And then one day you decide, I'm not going to put those foods in. In fact, I'm not even going to put any food in. I'm just going to allow the intelligence of my body to repair. If you've been living a very toxic standard, and I call it the standard American diet because now I should probably call it the standard world environment, because it's, our crappy food has now been going into other countries. Apologize for that. But if I've been doing the processed chemical bad oils, and I've been doing a lot of it, and I come to fasting, it may take some time. It could take months. And so that's why I call it a fasting lifestyle. You've got to really work on changing your fasts up and exercising that fasting muscle. The other thing to know about your microbiome is you can change your microbiome pretty quickly, within like 3 days. So if you've been eating or having crappy food, within 3 days, you're starting to see changes in the microbiome. So if you have been eating fairly well and you got stuck with your weight loss and now all of a sudden you come to fasting, you're probably going to get a quicker result. So it really depends on your toxic load. It depends on how bad your blood sugar balance is. It depends on the health of your gut, of your organs. So there's no cookie cutter answer. But what we're seeing, I can tell you from looking at hundreds of thousands of people fast, is it's pretty darn quick, within days to weeks, that we see people making changes. And those of you that are really stuck, it may take not months, but if you gave me somebody 90 days and I put them on a fasting lifestyle, we're going to see some change in 90 days. And if you start varying your fast, I can tell you that we have put thousands of people through our metabolic reset, where we're making changes every couple of days, and every single person drops weight and gets a result. So it's pretty quick, but don't give up if you're a month in and you're like, I'm not getting the result yet. It may be that there were more toxins than you originally thought that you had to clean up. So I hope that helps. I want you to understand it for you, and knowing that we're talking to a lot of different people with a lot of different bodies. So, okay, let me know if you're doing Fast Training Week. Let me know if you're doing it with the family. Put it in the comments. Pay attention to the community page. Join me in the academy or the collaborative, and let's all fast together. The world needs fasting right now, so I'm excited to be doing it with you guys. Have an awesome day.